what do we even call the group that's been huddled all week in the House chamber? I mean, it's not technically the 118th Congress because no members have been sworn in since there is no House Speaker. If anything, the best-known face in the House right now may be the clerk who has had to stand there through, as of Thursday afternoon, 8 rounds of votes going nowhere. So instead of the 118th Congress, I guess we can just call it no man's land? As Republicans continue to fight over their next leader, let's spare a thought for all those who came to Washington for their first terms in the House, for the 75 freshman members who are waiting to shed that representative-elect title and get to work. Some of them, at least, have found creative ways to pass the time.
We're just kind of sitting here because
I was supposed to become a member of Congress yesterday. We're still waiting.
Poor Greg, he was supposed to be sworn in for the first time yesterday. I was supposed to be sworn in for, I can't even believe it, the third time.
Third time.
It's just a total mess right now. There's still no Speaker of the House. We're now, what?
I keep thinking that somebody's going to tell me what's going to happen, right? There's like hundreds of members of Congress. I'm like, so what's happening next? They're like, we don't know. We'll find out.
We have no idea.
This is how the government is run.
Some members have brought their children to D.C. to witness their swearing in, only to wait around for days. As Congressman Tony Cardenas hilariously put it on Twitter with a photo of his colleague's infant, his baby was born on the first round of votes. He's now 4 months old. This freshman class is a notable one with a series of historic firsts for Congress. For starters, the class is the youngest in recent history, with the average age being about 46 years old and 18 members in their 20s or 30s. Congressman-elect Maxwell Frost, the first Gen Z member elected to the House, got rapturous applause this week at a ceremonial swearing-in for the Congressional Black Caucus. This new Congress has also seen a record number of Latinos elected, with 5 Republicans and 9 Democrats joining the House. One of these new Latino members, Democrat Delia Ramirez, will make history as the first Latina to represent Illinois in Congress, and she's already at work calling for her party to act on immigration reform. For Ramirez, the issue is personal. Her mother crossed the Rio Grande decades ago while pregnant so that her daughter could have a better life. Now her daughter is about to be sworn in as a congresswoman. Meanwhile, Ramirez's husband Boris arrived in the U.S. as a young man and has been protected by the Obama-era program for young immigrants known as DACA. Democrats have tried to extend DACA, but Republicans in the Senate have blocked it. Ramirez, who is on the progressive wing of her party, spoke out in front of the Capitol last month, calling on the Democratic leadership in Congress to act on immigration reform, with the little time they had left, with majorities in both houses. It didn't happen. So what can she and her colleagues do now they're in the minority? Congresswoman-elect Delia Ramirez joins me now. Congresswoman-elect, thanks for joining me on the show. I know you've literally stepped out from these endless votes for Speaker in the House. You got elected to Congress, you packed your bags, you come to Washington to join the new Congress. There still isn't a new Congress. What do you make of this whole situation? How are you finding your new place of work?
It's chaos. That's exactly what it feels like. I stepped out from the House floor as they were nominating, again, this third person, Donalds from Florida, to be the next speaker. We just finished our 7th vote. Democrats have voted consistently 2-1-2. 212 people have voted for Hakeem Jeffries 7 times, and we're about to go into the 8th vote. This is not what we all signed up for. This is exactly not what we expected. We thought our families, in my case, my mother, my father, my mother who took off of work with no pay to be here with me on such a historical moment, to see her daughter get sworn in, is on a plane right now to go back home and won't be afforded that opportunity. But honestly, it's worse than that. It's worse than that. There are people that need constituency services that cannot receive them in my district because I'm not sworn in right now. They're paralyzing Congress and the American people.
So what happens if your oath keeps getting pushed back? Have you been able to set up your office? I know you're saying constituent services are missing.
We can't.
Are you and your staff even getting paid right now?
We're not getting paid right now. We cannot open our offices. Until we are sworn in, we are still members-elect. We are not authorized to do anything as official business, having an office, providing constituency services, because we must be sworn in prior. In order for that to happen, we need to elect a speaker. I think it's unacceptable. In some ways, it feels criminal that you would hold Congress hostage Because one thing is the members, but I'm talking about millions and millions of people that are depending on constituency services to be able to go to their federal government, and they can't right now.
So a question for you. Is there anything Kevin McCarthy could offer that would get him some Democratic votes? Are there any other Republican members you could see yourself helping to elect? Ro Khanna, Democrat of California, has hinted this week that he'd be up for backing McCarthy maybe if the GOP agreed to restrict subpoena powers and not block a rise in the debt ceiling.
Look, I don't see Democrats voting for Kevin McCarthy any moment now. I think it actually, when you look at the vote numbers, it would be easier, and I think that there could be some kind of compromise, perhaps, for a few Republicans, which is all we need, to be able to have the majority votes, to be able to elect the first Black speaker from the Democratic Party to be our speaker here. What you're seeing is a show, what feels like a reality show, but it's playing with people's lives. You see them laughing there, joking around, while we are sitting there wanting to get to work and absolutely frustrated by the fact that they're not moving their votes. Kevin McCarthy is not getting more votes. He's losing them every time. You just heard Donald Trump get nominated for Speaker in the last round.
Ridiculously. Let's talk about some of the stuff that's not getting done, because, as you say, Congress is not in session. You were on Capitol Hill last month for orientation. You urged Democrats in the last Congress to get specific things done while they still had control. Let's have a listen.
It is time. It is past time that we deliver on the promise that we have made to our dreamers. It is past time that we go from promises to actual outcomes, and we have the power to do so before the next Congress.
So Democrats did not get DACA done in the last Congress when they had control of both chambers. What can they do now that you're in a minority in the House?
Well, we need to get the speakership resolved. But while we're doing that, we're already working and making sure that we identify ways to be able to provide protections. We know that it's a matter of time before a judge decides that the program is going to be terminated. As you know, my husband is one of those, but so are two of my brother-in-laws who are in DACA status right now, living in fear what will happen once this program is removed. So what we need to make sure we're doing is we're working with the White House to provide any additional protections necessary, or we're able to gain the majority and finally do what we need to do, what's expected of us, and what we've been waiting to get done for such a long time, which is actually create that pathway to citizenship for the thousands and thousands of dreamers who are not children anymore. They're like Boris. They're 37, 36, 35. They're parents. They're healthcare workers. They're teachers.
You mentioned your husband, Boris. What has his experience been like as a dreamer? What is the threat posed to people like him? What is it like to live under the shadow of that threat?
Look, I'm going to be very honest with you. When we saw the final votes come in and we saw that there was no action on DACA in the last bill, he and I just hugged. And I get teary thinking about it because I was born here. My mother crossed the border, but I was born in Chicago. He has heard the promises for a very, very long time, and he hasn't seen any progress towards it. He looked at me and said, I need you to go into that chamber, and I need to move past the hashtag, and you need to find the courage, the ability, and organize to finally give a pathway to those of us that deserve to be here and the ways that we continue to contribute to this country. We are tired. No more excuses. And he's right. I just stood quiet. I listened. And I was affirmed that there's a responsibility of what we do in this moment while we also prepare ourselves for the next 2 years.
So many people waiting for action. One last quick question for you. Democrats, especially in the South, have been losing some Latino voters to the Republican Party, and some centrists, quote unquote, in your party have argued that Democrats need to moderate their message to get Latinos back. You are considered to be a progressive. You are the daughter of Guatemalan immigrants. What do you say to those who argue that Democrats have moved too far left? You're too woke, and that's why you're losing Latino voters who are seen to be small c conservative. Do you buy that?
Absolutely not. 9 Latino Democrats were elected, many of us for the very first time. I'm the first Latina in the entire Midwest ever elected to Congress. I ran unapologetically about delivering, about results, and about being relatable. there was no red wave of Latinos, and there's not going to be as long as we continue to elect people that are here to do work, not for shows, not for games, or not for hashtags. What Latino people want is what everyone else wants. Members of Congress that understand personally what they're experiencing and are not going to make excuses to deliver for them. That is what I came to do, and that is what I expect of all my colleagues in the Democratic Party.